examining the comments on our recent review of the Flint Dibble Graham Hancock conversation on the Joe Rogan podcast has been really quite interesting. First of all, some excellent comments criticizing our review, criticizing the Joe Rogan episode, and generally moving the conversation forward and having a chat. That's been fantastic. Thank you very much. But also, there's been a couple of slightly disappointing trends as well that have manifested. First of all, some very forceful commenters saying the moment that they heard the word pseudo archaeology, or in one case, layman, I think someone suggested, that they just stopped watching the episode entirely, as though those things are slurs as opposed to descriptors of someone who is bringing a pseudo archaeological notion into the conversation. In fact, at the end of the Joe Rogan episode, he aligned himself with the pseudo archaeological community and asked if Flint was finally going to be polite and back off on pseudo archaeology, um, and it's interesting how that act of saying I'm not going to listen anymore, I'm going away now, I'm shutting this down, really denies archaeologists of the ability to have a professional stance on something, a professional opinion. Um, would you shut down the video the moment that, as I said in the episode, a guest on Joe Rogan like Neil deGrasse Tyson um, poo-pooed astrology as opposed to astronomy? I suspect not. And I think that's an interesting problem. I think that's partly the problem of the viewer, thinking that archaeology needs to just accept anything, any form um, of discourse and opinion as as valid as research and evidenced work. But also as well, I think it says something about archaeology. It says something about uh, an inability over the past several decades to really define what archaeology is, and the way that archaeology also as well is portrayed for better and for worse in popular culture. We're always the people who have an interest in the occult, who love traveling the world and discovering things that are on the edge of accepted science. And on the one hand, that's lots of fun, and I love it. I genuinely do. On the other hand, though, it does mean that when we want to say, well, actually, no, we base our work on on evidence, um, we we can come up against this issue of people saying, but you can't dismiss these ideas as being pseudo archaeological. That's me. I'm checking out. So that's been interesting. Um, the third thing I've really noticed has been a focus on Kara Cooney, our guest, as an American academic, as someone with an opinion and opinions. This is the reason why I invited her on, is that I knew she'd have interesting opinions, which notably differed from mine, certainly at times, somewhat from Andy's as well, on this conversation. Um, but people mistaking her opinions for an agenda, mistaking her personal and professional opinions and perspective for a whole culture of academia, and unfortunately as well focusing on her as a woman. I think the female is how some people have referred to her, as opposed to actually even using her name in the comments. And it's a shame because this really goes to the heart of one of the issues that I brought up in our conversation, and that is, why was it always more likely to be a man and not a woman who went on the Joe Rogan episode? And as Cara laid out for us, it's because women will be conscious of their age, of how they look, in a way that Flint didn't have to be. Flint could choose even a slightly exaggerated and ill shirt fitting persona. He sort of acknowledged this in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, in a way that a woman couldn't get away with. And 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 also as well the fact that even on her own podcast, they've had to stop using video and audio because people were fixating on how they were dressed. If they were dressed casual, then boy, did people go for the jugular. I'm definitely dressed casual today. In fact, I more often than not am just wearing a t-shirt, and I haven't done much with my with my hair. Um, And yet, I'm unlikely to get comments saying the male and his opinions. Um, yeah, it's a shame. And as I say, it's ironic because it really proves her point, and that's been interesting. I mean, I kind of thought it might happen, but it's been interesting to see the lack of self awareness from the people commenting, attempting to dismiss her uh, ideas about being a female academic because she's a female academic. Anyway, I suppose finally, the idea that we all had a single opinion on this debate was interesting as well. I uh, was quite critical of Flint at times. Andy was quite critical of the format at times. Cara was quite critical of the premise at times. Of course, we were never going to be arguing for Graham Hancock in the context of his lack of evidence. And if people were expecting a conversation where one of us might be like, well, maybe Hancock has a point. Well, at times I did say I'm open to him having a point. I've always said I'm open to him having a point, so long as he has evidence that's recognizable and doesn't. It's not just a case of doesn't that look like it could be something. As I pointed out in our conversation, a lot of things look like things. Doesn't mean that they are. You have to actually examine them and come to a, a repeatable uh, mutually intelligible observation about something to describe what it is. If geology looks like a brick and you look at it closely and it's actually geology, then it's geology. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Um, so yeah, I've always criticised him on that level, but it's a shame how. And again, this was almost always going to happen. People wanted to see three archaeologists being arrogant, dismissing someone who's just asking questions. And yet, the point being, though, I'm not interested in just asking questions. No archaeologist is interested in just asking questions. Questions are where things begin, but then you do the research and you answer those questions, and you're open to additional information that might add to your answer to those questions. And then, crucially, you move on to another question. You don't just keep on asking the same question over and over again, hoping that somewhere out there might be evidence that proves that your question is valid, when so far, after essentially my whole lifetime, Hancock has not been shown to have a valid question. Um, and also, as well as we pointed out, he moves around his focus. At one point, he was interested in the apocalypse in 2012. He's been interested in Martians and a Martian civilization. Even though now he claims he's not interested in ancient aliens, he moves the goalposts a lot, and uh, that's great for publishing books where you get to ask constant questions and never quite have to answer them. Um, so yeah, of course we're never going to defend that because we're not in the business of asking non-stop questions. We're in the business of asking questions and then looking for an answer, a hypothesis, and then trying to prove or disprove that hypothesis, not just presenting a theory without evidence and then claiming that people are being nasty when they want you to present evidence that's valid. Hmm. Oh, yeah, intriguing. Right, I'm gonna go and have some breakfast. Thanks for watching. Until next time, do take care. Bye bye.